Have you ever decided on a Monday that this is the week? This is the week you're finally going to get serious about learning a new language, only to completely give up by Thursday? Yeah. If that sounds familiar, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to break down a really clear, structured method for learning any language by yourself. The 4 Pillars of Fluency. Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to start by looking at the big challenge of fluency itself. Then, we'll walk through the 4 essential pillars one by one: vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, and speaking. And you're going to want to stick around because at the very end, we're going to talk about the one secret that just accelerates everything. So let's start with the biggest hurdle, the one thing that trips up pretty much every single person trying to learn a language. We've all been there, right? You get this burst of motivation, you download the app, you buy a fresh new notebook, and you start off so strong. But then somewhere around Wednesday, that fire just kind of fizzles out and the language gets pushed to the side. So why does this keep happening over and over again? Well, the answer is actually pretty simple. When you don't see any progress, quitting is basically inevitable. Without a clear path, you just feel like you're spinning your wheels. You're not going anywhere. And that's exactly why having a solid framework isn't just a nice to have, it's absolutely essential. And this right here is that framework, the 4 Pillars of Fluency. These are the 4 non-negotiable, you gotta do this areas you have to master. If you can get these right, you won't just see progress, you'll actually build the momentum you need to finally get where you want to go. First up, the foundation of all. Pillar number 1, vocabulary. I mean, it's pretty simple. Without the words, you can't really build anything, can you? So, to be considered fluent in a language, you need a working vocabulary of at least 5,000 words. Now let that sink in. 5,000. That is a massive number, and it points to a really crucial truth. You can't just hope you're going to absorb that many words by accident. You absolutely need a system. And this is where most people go wrong. Just randomly writing down new words in a notebook, that's not a strategy. That's just a recipe for forgetting them a week later. Effective learning has to be intentional. It means using a real system, something like flashcards, to actively and purposefully drive the most important words into your long-term memory. Okay, let's move on to our second pillar. Now, this is the one that a lot of people dread, but I want you to look at it in a completely new light. We're talking about grammar. You see, the mistake we all made in school was treating grammar like this passive thing, just mindlessly filling in blanks in a workbook. The key is to make it an active investigation. Don't just learn a rule, ask why that rule exists. How is it different from your own language? The moment you start digging into the why, grammar stops being a chore and actually becomes a really interesting puzzle. Because that's all grammar is. It's not just a bunch of random rules to memorize. Think of it like the operating system for your vocabulary. It's the internal logic that organizes all those words you're learning so they actually create meaning. When you start to understand that logic, you're actually getting a peek into how native speakers think. And that is genuinely fascinating. Okay, on to our third pillar, a topic that is so often misunderstood: pronunciation. And the very first thing we have to do here is clear up a really common point of confusion. Let's be super clear about this. Your accent is not a mistake. If you learn a language as an adult, you are going to have an accent, and that's okay. You should embrace it. It's part of your story. But, and this is a big but, having an accent is not an excuse for bad pronunciation. Those are 2 totally different things. And this is why it matters so much. Look at this example in Portuguese. There's a really subtle difference between massa, which means dough or pasta, and maçã, which means apple. That tiny little sound changes everything. So good pronunciation isn't about sounding like a native.
It's about being understood. It's your responsibility as the learner to make the sounds correctly so people know if you're asking for pasta or an apple. And that brings us perfectly to our fourth and final pillar, the one that really ties everything else together: actually speaking the language. So many learners are just waiting for that magical day when they finally feel confident enough to start speaking. But here's the truth. That day is never going to come. Confidence is not something you need before you practice. It's the results of your practice. You build confidence by doing the scary thing, not by waiting for the fear to go away. And speaking is the ultimate test because it forces your brain to do everything at once. You have to recall the vocabulary, apply the right grammar, and use the correct pronunciation, all in real time. It's incredibly hard, and that's exactly why you have to start practicing it, even if it's just talking to yourself from day one. So there you have it, the 4 pillars. But what's the secret sauce? What's the thing that ties them all together and just turbocharges your progress? Well, that's what I like to call the accelerator. The key is something called deep processing. Now, that sounds academic, but it's really simple. It just means making your study sessions challenging. It's about doing things that force your brain to actively retrieve information and create something new with the language, not just passively consume it. Here's the difference. Shallow processing is just reading a text. Deep processing is writing your own text. Shallow processing is doing a simple fill-in-the-blank worksheet. Deep processing is trying to explain a grammar rule out loud in your own words. If you want to get fluent fast, you have to consistently push yourself into that deeper, more challenging kind of work. And that brings us to the end. We've walked through the 4 essential pillars: vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, and speaking, and the accelerator that speeds it all up: deep processing. So now the question I have is for you. Looking at this framework, which one of these pillars is the most difficult for you? Really think about it, because answering that question is your first step to building your own path to fluency.